EVE Online is getting a new expansion, and CCP has just dropped the initial announcement, so let's jump in. Hey there, Croven here for the Drone Bay. The recent announcement for the new EVE expansion Catalyst was released and includes changes to mining and exploration, including some new ships, a new map, a new epic arc, a buff to carriers, and a Plex log. As much as I'd like to start with the new toys, the mining changes will have a pretty significant bearing on the use cases for the new ships, so let's start there. As is to be expected, the announcement is full of marketing speak, saying that the changes will make mining more dynamic, rewarding, and fiercely contested. The first big change is a new ore, prismaticite. Not a lot is known at this point about prismaticite, other than that it will be rare and will require an anchorable structure placed at a rare phased field to create a hyperspace fracture. There are unconfirmed reports that accessing prismaticite will require either porpoises or a rorqual. The promo image certainly seems to show a rorqual. Prismaticite will be unique in that it will refine into random products by default. Evidently, we will be able to direct what you end up with by using reactions, but no mechanism for that has been discussed just yet. CCP is also changing how we interact with the asteroids and gas that we mine. Mining cycles will be shorter, but yield over time will apparently not be changed, and what they're hoping for there is that more dynamic experience from the marketing speak earlier. There will also be a chance for mining crits that can be affected by skills and modules. Without much detail, it's hard to say exactly what impact these will have, so we'll need to see more before we pass judgment. What we have already seen more of is some of the changes to the mining UI and user experience. Scanning asteroids will now apparently be faster, and results will be displayed on the rocks themselves in space. In addition, the estimated ISK per cubic meter price will be displayed when hovering over the asteroids. One of the more interesting changes to mining, in my opinion, at least based on what we know so far, is the return of Omber and Kernite to HiSec in the form of anomalies. There will also evidently be some valuable ores tucked into combat sites that you need to probe down. Allowing easier access to a broader range of minerals and putting that in more areas of space is almost certainly going to be a good thing for the EVE economy. Finally, mining modules and drones will be getting mutaplasmids, meaning miners can blow their money on gambling just like the rest of us. Next, let's touch briefly on the new 2D map. This should be a significant quality of life improvement. The vast majority of EVE players, that I know of at least, have already been using Dotland for years upon years now, and bringing a similar type of functionality in-game is going to be a significant improvement to the map, make it easier to route, make it easier to see connections between constellations and regions and that sort of thing, especially for people who aren't already familiar with that. And when you add that with some of the new filtering options that they've already added to the in-game map, I think this is just a straight-up win. Now it's time for the good stuff. New ships. First, we are getting a new mining destroyer, the Pioneer. While CCP has given us a look at the stats, it's hard to tell how exactly they're going to stack up against the Venture and the barges. If the stats were to stay the same on the Venture, then it's not a super great option to upgrade except for maybe a bigger mining hold, but bear in mind that they've already told us they're going to be reworking mining for shorter cycle times, but giving the same yield as now. So there's no reason to believe necessarily that the mining bonuses on ventures and barges are going to remain the same. So until we know that, we won't know how the Pioneer is going to stack up as far as cubic meters per second. The idea for the Pioneer definitely seems to be a midpoint between the barges and the venture hull frigates. As someone who spends a lot of time in wormhole space and plans to spend even more, I can see these being a nice option, especially if they've got bigger holds than the venture-based ships. If you're going, into adjacent holes, or even if you're doing anomalies as opposed to gas sites, having a destroyer be able to be more nimble and have a bigger hold than a venture at the same time, I could definitely see some nice use cases for that. And based on the pictures, it looks like there might be 3 mining lasers coming off of that Pioneer, but it's hard to say for sure. There will also be a Tech 2 variant of the Pioneer as well as a consortium variant. And while new ships do mean new skills to train, I'm just a big fan of more options. The Pioneer is also involved in the new, allegedly brief Epic arc, which will grant a Pioneer as a reward at some point. Now, what CCP says they're doing here is experimenting with using epic arcs to introduce new expansion material, which I think is a really good idea. It gives new players another option for things to do after their career missions beyond the Sisters of Eve arc and otherwise saying, here, go find a corp. And it would help returning players as well, because if you've missed an expansion or two, but there are these little epic arcs that kind of help you catch up with what's been going on, including what the new ships are and stuff like that. I really like that idea. Now let's move on to the ship that has me and apparently a lot of other people very excited, the Odysseus. First off, this ship looks amazing. It is an exploration command ship with bonuses to gas scoops, hacking, the ability to fit a 0-point mass entangler. It can fit a covert ops cloak. It's got the standard SOE bonuses to drones and armor and lasers, I believe. And it's also going to get exploration-based command bursts. We don't know exactly what those are yet, and it will be interesting to see what they do with those, because while you do have to decloak to do a lot of exploration activity, fleeting up for exploration seems like something, at least in the current state of the game, that's not super common. At least I'm not very aware of it, unless you're mining gas clouds or something like that. But at any rate, so there will be exploration-based command bursts, and I suppose if nothing else, you would be buffing yourself while you're decloaked. As I alluded to a moment ago, based on the screenshots we've seen and the skills that are required, this is a Sisters of Eve ship, so maybe start running some SOE missions, because it's entirely possible that those loyalty points will become pretty valuable in the near future. I was hanging out in Chlorokin's stream a little bit after the announcement dropped. And if you're not familiar with Chlorokin, he makes some fantastic wormhole-based content. A Nomad Tale is one of the best long-form pieces of EVE content I've seen. He's also got great stuff on Jedi mind-tricking gas sites, running ghost sites. Really good stuff. Really fun, chill streamer, too. So go check him out. And so while I was in his stream, Chlorokin was saying that he believes, and I agree with him on this, that the Odysseus has the potential to be kind of the one-stop shop for an explorer who is single boxing or has maybe 2 accounts. The ship can do just about everything pretty well when it comes to exploration, and particularly like wormhole exploration stuff. Right now, your best option is a strategic cruiser if you wanted to go ratting in wormholes. But then if you want to do the traditional exploration content, like, hacking relic and data sites, you have to bring, well, it's ideal to bring a mobile depot and a refit, or else you're nerfing your combat capabilities somewhat, and you can't do gas at all. So for the day tripper, this seems like a great option. And I would imagine, I mean, it's hard to say for sure until we see some more solid numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if this thing could run the combat sites or the combat anomalies in C1s and even C2s. C3s might be a little tough. Battle cruisers can have a rougher time in there but if you were willing to spend something on the fitting, it wouldn't surprise me if you could do it. Now, you might need to refit in that instance too, but either way. Lower class wormholes, this thing could do everything except mine asteroids, really. The mass entangler option is also a really interesting inclusion to this. So if you're not familiar, a mass entangler, when active, can greatly reduce the mass of a ship. And right now, it's heavy interdiction cruisers are what they're used on. And they're used for a couple of things. The most common usage of them is in edge cases when you've got a wormhole that's at critical mass. So basically, you can reduce your mass to next to 0 while going one direction. And then on the way back, you're hitting the micro warp drive if you're trying to roll the hole, and getting that mass so that you're not rolling yourself out of your own hole. Potentially even more interesting is the ability to go into C13 holes. Now, C13 holes, if you're not familiar with wormholes, They're in a shattered system, meaning there's no citadels in there, but also a C-13 hull in particular normally only allows destroyer-size hulls in. So you see a lot of Tech 3 destroyers in there. And there are some exceptions. There are other ways to kind of cheese another ship in there, but that's for the most part what you're going to see. So being able to have a battle cruiser hull in there could be really interesting, especially a battle cruiser that's going to be able to do a lot of different stuff. The announcement for the Catalyst expansion wrapped up with a couple other things, including the introduction of a Plex log, which just tracks your incoming, outgoing Plex transactions. I don't imagine many of us having enough Plex going in and out to necessitate a log, and probably most of the people who do have that much coming in and out are finding some way to track it. I guess the one thing that would be interesting is if it was hooked into the ESI somehow, so you could like integrate it into your Excel spreadsheet. But that if it's in your ESI, then that means there's a scope for it, meaning that that data could be getting sent to your corp, your alliance. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. It, the, I'm interested to hear more about this. Finally, carriers are getting a buff. Now, carriers are a ship class that right now are a little more than glorified taxis and suitcases. CCP says there will be unspecified buffs to utility, an unspecified reduction in production cost, and a visual refresh. Now, they say they're intentionally not making any big changes right now with carriers, but I'm not sure. Without taking a big swing, I'm not sure how much more use we're actually going to see. Still, buffs are great. We like buffs. And I know it's been quite a while since we've posted any videos on this channel, and my hope is to change that. I'd really appreciate it if you gave the video a like and gave us a subscribe. It really does help, especially for small channels in very niche areas like EVE Online. And until next time, keep flying.